What's happening in Seattle with youth participatory budgeting is part of a broader movement that's both national and, in fact, global, where people are really taking control over this question of the who, the what, and the how of public decision-making. But behind all of it, of course, is the work of organizing people in the first place to understand these elements of agenda setting and to practice them. And so one of the great practitioners in our community of this art is my friend Estela Ortega, who's the Executive Director of El Centro de la Raza. And Estela, welcome. We're glad to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here, Eric. Thank you.
You know, El Centro de la Raza has been around in the community for so many decades now, many years. But I want to hear a little bit about how, from the very beginning, your origins, you and the late Roberto Maestas, your husband, who helped create this, how you went about the work of trying to change and set the agenda in this city and beyond about the issues that you care about.
Well, thank you. Well, basically, I mean, first of all, we have to point out that the struggle that El Centro de la Raza went through in occupying a building was led by Chicano Latinos, but supported by communities of color. And that was extremely crucial, and that was built on relationships before the founding of El Centro that we referred to the four amigos, Bernie Whitebear, Roberto, Larry Gossett, and who am I forgetting? I guess Roberto.
Uncle Bob Santos.
Oh, Bob Santos, yes. They worked together, and so those relationships were created. And so community organizing is about relationships also. So when, you know, the decision was made to occupy the building.
And this was in what year?
This was in 1972, the fall of 1972. And the mobilization not only included Latinos, but it also included organizing communities of color in the progressive white community.
And this is worth making express, because to many people, particularly who maybe have only been in Seattle a short number of years, Centro de la Raza is up there on Beacon Hill, and it has this great big building. But people may not know that that building had been an empty Seattle Public Schools space, and that you all had to, in the first place, occupy it in order to draw attention to the issues that your community and the wider communities of color were concerned about in the city.
Exactly. I mean, people did try to have meetings with, the district to see about leasing, etc., and there wasn't any movement. And said, okay, the building is there. And Dan Evans was our governor at the time. And a lot of school buildings were being abandoned for more modern buildings. And he said, the communities should make use of those school buildings. And so folks said, that's our cue. That is our cue to occupy this building.
He probably didn't mean for that to happen, but...
Right, and then there was the experience, too, of Native Americans in the area that Bernie Whitebear in 1970 had occupied Fort Lawton, for the use of services for Native Americans, Alcatraz in California, I think 1969. So there was examples, and of course, occupations that were also happening at the University of Washington.
So fast forward a little bit. I mean, this seminal moment in the first place of occupying a space, which led ultimately to a deal being struck where your organization was able to, in a sense, lease the space at a very low rate. And from there, the foundations of this organization were built. Now, fast forward a little bit to some other pivotal moments in the life of El Centro, where you had to kind of figure out, how do you navigate the decision-making, the agenda-setting systems of government, both at the city and the state and even the national level?
Well, I think part of it, El Centro de la Raza is a 501c3, and there are stipulations that you cannot support political candidates, etc. And the reality is that those candidates, whether they become politicians, they're in city council, county council, the governor, state legislators, those are the people that make decisions about who's going to receive funding or whatever issue, that people may be working on. And yet you're told, don't have relationships with them. And you essentially, as a community-based organization, have to have relationships with those people. You need to be present. They need to get to know you. And so, again, that is sort of the first rule of community organizing, is creating relationships with people within all those different sectors, and at the same time, it's not only the politicians that you're needing to create relationships, but it's also with communities of color, other people that are doing similar work, that you're supporting their issues, they're supporting you, you're building relationships that when an action or a mobilization needs to happen, you can call on those trusted allies.
And as you all have built not only the wide portfolio of social and civic services that you all offer, but also have taken on some more ambitious projects in the community, you've had to read that map of who makes decisions and who influences decisions. You're in the midst right now, as we speak, of preparing to launch a big new project, Plaza Roberto Maestas, in memory of Roberto. Tell us a little bit about how what the project is and how it came to be, again, in the sense of how you read that map of relationships and power in a way to help make this venture possible.
Well, Plaza Roberto Maestas is a mixed-use development that consists of 112 units of affordable housing. There's retail space, office space. We're expanding our early childhood development with classrooms. There is a commercial kitchen that small businesses will be able to use in the evening, especially those who cook. There are there's going to be a space for micro businesses and even a farmer's market there. And so when the opportunity presented itself for us, well, one is that light rail was going to make a stop now on Beacon Hill, and that was not the plan before. And so El Centro de la Raza thought, okay, we're going to have light rail. We've got an acre of land. What do we do? And at that same time, the city of Seattle was like, okay, we now have to upzone the areas. We've got to get input from people. And no one expected us to say, put the acre of land in the mixed city of Seattle, because we want to get input from the community on what they wanted to see on Beacon Hill. And we knew that if we received input from people and we were being very transparent in that way, we were going to end up having a lot of support for the community to do what we wanted to do there. And part of that is that we didn't go into it blindly. We knew that we had to also mobilize our people who lived on Beacon Hill, people who sought services at Beacon Hill, people who worked on Beacon Hill that were friendly to El Centro. We knew that we needed to mobilize them to be a part of that process also. So within that, obviously, hundreds and hundreds of people were involved in the process.
And the process meant actually bringing this project idea to the attention of who? City council, state legislature? I mean,
it was a combination of, it was the city council, it was the state legislature, it was the governor, because we knew that we were going to be seeking resources from all of those entities. And so
you're saying one of the ways that you were successful in getting this project onto these various agendas of these bodies was, in the first place, having done what maybe some insiders didn't expect you to do, which is to throw it open to your community and invite their hopes and dreams and ideas, so that you would build kind of a popular base for this. And so then it wasn't just an idea that Estela had and blueprints on paper. It was, here's the will of the people.
Exactly.
And now, we're kind of thrusting ourselves onto the docket, right?
And it was referred to as community inspired transit-oriented development as well.
Community-inspired transit-oriented development. Okay.
Absolutely.
Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you do that kind of community-inspired work, again, that we can joke about what a mouthful that is, but a lot of decision-making in political life, whether at the city level or national, isn't often community-inspired, right? There's often kind of a show of, give us your opinions, but the way that you all went about designing and deciding what the priorities would be in the development of Plaza, you all reached out to your base of members of the community.
Right, and I also want to say that it's not in a vacuum, that in terms of people who are listening to this and thinking all of a sudden, okay, we're going to go organize. You have to have some credibility behind you that you have been doing this work, that you've been creating relationships, so that when you need to take that kind of a step, people are going to want to listen and be involved in that process. So yes, you know, we went to the different sectors and mobilized, and you know, clearly if it would have been just one person's idea, there's no way that it would have moved forward. But it moved forward, one might say, because of the power of the people, if you will, and that there were so many people involved and invested and wanting the project to materialize.
Well, the work that you all have been doing at El Centro de la Raza is a great fusion of both this spirit of understanding how agendas get set, but also understanding the power of participation and the way these two things mesh. So, Estela, thank you so much for joining us and sharing a little bit about what you do and how we can actually make sure that we, the people, set more of the agenda.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Thanks for being here.